Now, Gen 5 NVMEs have now been around for a while, but finally, Samsung has released their own. These two here are the Samsung 9100 Pro Gen 5 NVMe SSDs. I expect them to be the absolute best on the market. But what about me, says the Crucial T705. Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's what I was wondering as well, because this Crucial has been the best one that I've tested on the channel so far. And the question is, can Samsung beat that? It's a good question, and we're gonna find out. Licensing Windows is cheap and easy with whokeys.com, and if you use the code TN20, you get an extra discount. Complete the purchase, copy the key, and paste it to the activation settings. And you're all done. Also, check out their Microsoft Office 19 license and use the same code TN20 for the extra discount. Check out whokeys.com in the video description below. So what you'll see is not just these two Samsung SSDs compared to this Crucial, but I've got two other stacks of NVMEs that I have been testing on the channel, and they'll be all linked in the video description below if you want to pick any of these up. Now, first, I've got two options here that I've been testing. I have the 4TB without the heatsink, and then I've got the heatsink version, but that one is 2TB version. So looking at the actual design and physical aspects of it, there's some interesting things going on. You can see that there's the NAND chips on the top, then we've got our DRAM, and then the controller just over there. Now, if I flip the SSD around, you can see there's nothing underneath, which means each one of these is 2TB in size. It's single-sided, which means you're not going to have any issues. If we look at the WD Black SN850X, for example, you can see that the chips are on the bottom side as well. So it might not fit onto all the laptops or some of the small slim slots, but here you've got no problem. Everything is on the top, so you don't necessarily need a heatsink underneath. On the top will be just fine. But interestingly, Samsung has sandwiched together their own heatsink, something on the top and then something on the bottom. Now, the good thing about Samsung's heatsink is if you want to put it inside some of the cases, you're not going to have compatibility issues, even if it's underneath your GPU, for example. Now, if you bought this Crucial one, you can see there's going to be issues because this Crucial one is a lot bigger and it doesn't fit into your PS5, for example, whereas this Samsung one does. It's very nice and slim, and in most of the cases, I would say even slimmer than your motherboard heatsink, so there's going to be no issues. Looks very cool as well. There's little chrome edges on the side. In terms of specs of this NVMe, this is a high-end Gen 5 NVMe because it's using DRAM cache. So you've got your controller, which is a Samsung controller. They've made it their own LPDDR4X DRAM in there. And for each terabyte, you've got 1 GB. So this 4TB version here has 4 GB of LPDDR4X RAM. It comes in quite a few sizes: 1 TB, 2 TB, 4 TB. In Q3 2025, Samsung will also be launching the 8 TB version of this drive, which is going to be insane. And I don't think the competition has that yet. The box says that we can expect read speeds of up to 14,800 on the 4 TB one and 14,700 megabytes per second on the 2 TB one. That's insane. That's literally 2x the Gen 4 speeds what we can get from the Samsung 990 Pro, which I have actually plugged in here. These sequential read and write speeds aren't very natural, and you don't really see that. I would like to see a workflow where you actually see 14 gigabytes per second read speeds. It will be very, very small percentage of people who can actually do it in very specific workflows. So if we are actually testing that sequential read and write speeds, I've got Crystal Disk Mark open here. Both of these SSDs, the fastest I have ever tested. They beat out the Crucial T705. I don't exactly see the advertised speeds, but we're 100 megabytes short, so it's completely fine. Couple of percent better than the Crucial on the read speed, and in terms of the write speed, again, the fastest I have ever tested. Here, about 5% faster than the Crucial one, which is very, very good. But these are kind of synthetic benchmarks. What about the more real-world benchmarks? I have quick system drive benchmark. So this is PC Mark 10, and basically what this test does is it tests the drive as your secondary drive. You've got an operating system drive, and then this quick system drive benchmark is testing the drive as the secondary drive. So when you are opening and closing just documents, opening photos, something like that. Little bits on the side, so you're not running your programs on it, you're not actually running the operating system on it. As a secondary drive, how well does it do? Interestingly, we're not the best anymore. We can see that the Crucial T705 is the best, about 5% better, and then the Teamgroup T4's Z540 is also a little bit better. And here our Samsung drives come third and fourth, both of them. You can see the solid red one, the 4TB one, and then the Heatsink and the 2TB version is a little bit lighter red. Now, still very much one of the best drives, but I think as a secondary drive, as you would be using it for this type of system, maybe like on a laptop or secondary drive, you know, just opening and closing documents, things like that, I feel like this drive is a little bit wasted performance. Moving on to data drive benchmark, and this is where we're testing this drive, not like kind of opening and doing random small tasks on the secondary drive. We're more loading data on, reading data off, loading some more data on it. So this is a data drive benchmark where more larger data gets written on the drive and how well does it do in there. And still, we've got a big jump between the Gen 4 and Gen 5, as you can see there, but we're not the fastest on the Gen 5. In fact, one of the slowest drives, both of these on Gen 5 that I have tested. The Corsair MP7000 faster, Data Legend is faster, Crucial is faster, Teamgroup is faster on the Gen 5 side. Obviously, massive gap between Gen 4 and Gen 5, but not the best. But I still feel like the performance is kind of wasted here because you're not going to just load a little bit of data on it and then reading off it. That's not what this is for. Moving on to full system drive benchmark, and this is one of the most important benchmarks in this video. This tests the drive as the operating system and programs drive. So when your Windows is operating off this drive and when your programs are run on this drive, how good is this drive? And this is where we are on top of the chart. As you can see, both of the 4TB and 2TB versions perform within less than 0.5% of each other. They are the best drives that you can get, which just shows us that whether you get a larger or smaller capacity drive, it's still the best one that you can get. If you're looking for operating system, this Samsung 9100 is the best drive that you can get. Maybe even go with a 1TB version because there is not that big of a difference out there. The Crucial T705 is roughly about 5% slower in this test here, and then the rest of the Gen 5 drives kind of pop in there. In terms of Gen 4 drives, looking at, let's say, the 990 Evo Plus or the 990 Pro, we're roughly about 30% slower, 30 to 33% slower on the Gen 4 side, which is quite a big gap. Now, at the same time, highly recommend checking out the best pricing and the latest one in the video description below, because I'll leave all these SSDs linked below, so you can actually check whether any of these are better pricing or lower pricing according to these benchmarks here, because NVMe prices constantly change. But now when you know the performance difference, you can decide if the value proposition actually works for you and you can get the best bang for buck, because I'm all for the best bang for buck. Now, there is one more thing to do, which is the drive consistency test. This tests the drive in a very heavy, almost synthetic workload. Now, there are certain workloads that actually utilize it like that, but for most people, that's not the case. This loads over 20 terabytes of files on the drive, fills the drive multiple times during this test, and often the test runs 10 to 20 hours, absolutely saturates this drive and takes it to the absolute maximum. There's one thing to mention in this test. I've often seen drives with DRAM perform better and drives with larger capacity perform better just because they've got the capacity to load more of this data on and don't slow down as the smaller drives that need to empty and fill the drive multiple times. Now here, things get very interesting. As you can see, the 2 and the 4 terabyte difference, there is quite a big difference. We see about 15% difference between just the capacity drives, but the Samsung doesn't quite reach the Crucial T705 performance. But we are splitting the hair here because it's within 0.3%. So the Crucial is 0.3% faster, which can be within margin of error, but these are the top drives that I have tested on this. So if you are planning to use this drive as a creator, video, 3D, or photo editor, as a project drive where you're gonna load loads of big assets on it, photos, video, whatever 3D assets, and it takes a lot of capacity and space on the drive, this drive is one of the best drives to use for that. If you constantly hammering this, coming down from a shoot, and you're loading terabytes and terabytes of footage on it, and then wanting to edit off it, it is one of the best drives to get. And if you're doing that, highly recommend going with a 4 terabyte version, because then it just performs a little bit better. Let's take a look at the KC3000, which is a Kingston drive, and then a 4 terabyte Gen 4 drive. We have gained almost double the performance. The KC3000 is about 42 to 41% slower than this guy here. That is ridiculous performance on the Gen 5. As you can see, writing data on it and reading off it, the Gen 5 controllers and fast speeds, it really makes a difference in there. There's one more thing to talk about, which is the endurance and terabyte written spec. Because you can only write certain amount of data on these cells before they start to deteriorate or maybe not perform as well. Now, that doesn't mean that necessarily something may happen. It can happen. And the manufacturer's warranty for these drives is 5 years or 600 terabytes per 1 terabyte written spec. So if you write 600 terabytes on it tomorrow, then your warranty kind of ends, if that makes sense. Now, it's very hard to do that, but this is industry standard, and this was the same that we saw on the Gen 4 drives, 600 terabytes per 1 terabyte. If you go with 2 terabytes, obviously it doubles, and when you go to 4 terabyte, it also doubles again. So we can get 2400 terabytes for 4 terabytes. The interesting thing is the 8 terabyte also doubles from 4 terabytes, and you can get 4800 terabyte written spec for the 5 years. That will be very complicated and hard for anybody to fill, because that's a lot of data that you can write on it. But if that is important to you as a creator, it is out there. So we're not improving this in any way, but we can get a solid performance from the Samsung drives and know that the endurance is very highly rated. In conclusion, this highly rated drive, is it any good? And the answer is absolutely flipping yes. It is a lot better than any of the Gen 4 drives. If you're going from Gen 4, the Gen 5 becomes now a little bit more standardized. It is absolutely the best. If you have the money, it's one of the best out there. Is it the ultimate best? The difference between the Crucial T705 and then the Samsung, there is no real difference according to my testing. If you're asking me which one to get, I'd say go check out the links in the video description below and check which one is cheaper. Whatever is cheaper, just buy that one. Bear in mind, one of them might have a heatsink that might not fit in your case. Just bear that in mind. Has Samsung done an awesome job? It's absolutely top of the benchmark, top of the class, within 1-2% of the SSDs I have ever tested on this channel. The other question to ask here is it worth upgrading from Gen 4 to Gen 5? And I would say if you're already running Gen 4, don't. Unless something happens and you need to upgrade, maybe think about Gen 5. But when you're upgrading to Gen 5 NVMEs, what most people don't realize is your other hardware might not be compatible with it. You might be running a system that maybe has one Gen 5 slot, but when you plug something in it, you lose something else with it. Only if you have the latest CPU from Intel or AMD, that's the cool Core Ultra 200S or later, or the Ryzen 7000 or later, you might get some slots that don't lose any bandwidth. And if you're building one of these right now, consider this. Absolutely, if you've got the cash. But I think for most people still, and even I would, actually best bang for buck, the Gen 4 Samsung 990 Pro, for example, is an absolutely amazing buy. Go check out the pricing and make up the choice for yourself. Samsung, well done. It's an absolutely amazing drive. And if you want to check it out, the links are in the video description below. If you do want to build yourself the best bang for buck creator PC, highly recommend checking out the build guides in the video description. There's some for each budget, so go check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Bye bye.